I've always found it a bit strange how, for the entirety of this series thus far, we've mostly just looked at cartoons from the 2000s onwards. Only recently did we look at a cartoon pre-2000s, that being 1991's Hammerman. I don't know, I guess I just don't want to get out of my comfort zone. You know, the 2000s was an absolute peak decade for cartoons, and so I guess I'd rather focus on the not peak cartoons of that decade. I don't know what the hell is up with that, but yeah, I haven't really looked at that many pre-2000s cartoons on this series, and I don't know why. I'm not an animation historian or anything like that, but I don't think I need to be one when I say that animation in the 80s was absolutely awful. Almost every cartoon that came out in the 80s was a glorified, soulless, corporate manufactured toy commercial disguised as a cartoon. Even the alleged classic stuff like TMNT and Thundercats and He-Man and whatever, yeah, they're made to sell toys. There's no artistic value in any of them. But I'm not going to be looking at an 80s cartoon in this video. Instead, I'm looking at a cartoon that dates all the way back to 1950. I have heard claims that this is the worst cartoon ever made, and, well, I'll be the judge of that. I am somehow the only person in the world that doesn't hate the problem solvers. Clearly, I have the most trustable animation opinions. The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican is an obscure, short-lived cartoon from 1950, created by someone named Sam Singer, whose identity is mostly unknown except for the fact that he has made other very poorly made cartoons. Apparently he had another cartoon around the same time called Bucky and Pepito, which, again, I know nothing about this show, but it's apparently really f***ing racist, so you know, I can't wait to look at this when the time comes. Only 6 episodes were made of The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican, and given the fact that this is from 1950, obviously these are very short. So you would think this would be a breeze to sit through, you know? Oh, if only you knew the kind of garbage we have in store for today. Let's just say there's a very good reason why Paddy the Pelican over here isn't considered on par with Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny or Woody Woodpecker or Felix the Cat or any of these other really old characters. Now apparently this cartoon was lost media for a long time. To my knowledge, of the 6 episodes, maybe like 1 or 2 of them, I'm not sure, were included on this DVD from animation historian Jerry Beck. The worst cartoons ever. I should get my hands on this DVD at some point and review the cartoons that are on it to see if this DVD indeed contains the worst cartoons ever. No offense to Jerry Beck, but I highly doubt the cartoons on this DVD are worse than the likes of The Slim Shady Show or Pixel Pinky, High Guardian Spice, any of the garbage cartoons that I've had the misfortune of sitting through. Again, my opinions on animation are clearly the only ones that matter. So yes, this was lost media at some point, but now it's been found. All 6 episodes of this show are available online, and they're all in the public domain, meaning you could just freely watch them. I could literally upload all 6 episodes onto my YouTube channel, and I could monetize them, and like nothing would happen. So I went into this show not knowing what to expect from it. Now, this is a very old cartoon, very different from what I usually cover on this series. I can't compare this to any other cartoon on this series because it is significantly older. Every other cartoon I've looked at is a lot more recent in comparison. This cartoon came out in 1950. This is the oldest cartoon I've looked at on this series by far. And then the second oldest cartoon I've looked at on this series is Hammerman, which wouldn't come out until in 1991, over 40 years later. And then the third oldest cartoon I've looked at on this series, to my knowledge, is The Slim Shady Show, which came out at around 2001, I believe. I'm not sure. It came out in the very early 2000s, that much I know. Part of me doesn't want to be super harsh on this show, because it did come out in 1950, but then I look at Looney Tunes and Mickey Mouse shorts that came out before Paddy the Pelican, and despite that are of significantly higher quality. Steamboat Willie came out like 30 years before Paddy the Pelican, and it is much higher quality in comparison. At the same time though, I kinda don't want to be super harsh on this show because, you know, Steamboat Willie had a team behind it, whereas I'm 99% sure the aforementioned Sam Singer was the only person involved with the creation of this thing. This is a cartoon that was made by one person and only one person. I cannot verify this, but like, there's no other names that are attached to this show besides Sam Singer. So really now, how bad is The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican? Is this the worst cartoon ever made? Yes and no. Quality-wise, this is the absolute nadir of cartoons. I didn't think it was possible for a cartoon to be this poorly made. Again, I know it's technically not fair because this is significantly older than every other cartoon I've looked at on this series so far, but I don't care. Quality-wise, this is the absolute worst cartoon I've looked at on this series. And yes, if you want to look at it from that perspective, this is the worst cartoon ever made. In terms of tolerability, though, it's not the worst. I know some people are gonna look at this show and they're gonna think this is gonna be funny bad. This is gonna be like a so bad it's good cartoon. This could be like The Room of cartoons or something like that. And to an extent, it is funny bad, but that funny bad nature, it wears off very quickly, and then the show just becomes insufferable. Again, this show only had 6 episodes that are all around 5 minutes long. By the time you get to the second episode, midway into that second episode, the funny bad nature of this show goes away, and it just becomes absolutely insufferable to sit through. You're just sitting here watching this show and you're thinking, what the am I watching? What the is going on? And yet, despite that though, despite how unbelievably awful this show is quality-wise, it's not exactly the worst thing I've ever seen. Stuff like Mr. Burcham and Pixel Pinky and whatever, I think are far worse cartoons, even though they are significantly more competently made in comparison. So let's go over that, shall we? Let's talk about The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican. What is technically the worst cartoon ever made? Starting off, I just want to talk about this absolutely amazing banger of a theme song.
Hi there, boys and girls.
They don't call my man Sam Singer for nothing. Jesus Christ, man. Bro wants to have a theme song for his cartoon, but unfortunately he cannot afford to get a band or a composer or anything like that. So what does he do? He just sings a theme song himself. He has the melody of the song in his head, he has the idea of how the song goes in his head, and he just sings it out of his voice, out of his mouth, whatever. It is the closest he can get to having his vision become a reality. Now, I know it's very easy to laugh at this, it's very easy to ridicule this, very easy to make fun of this, whatever. I get that, but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't genius in a way. For this show, I'm going to be doing something that I rarely ever do on this series, and that is analyze every episode of this show. Go over all 6 episodes of this show. Now, as I mentioned before, every episode of this show is extremely short. The longest episode is only 6 minutes long, and that's it. The overall runtime for the entire show is 32 minutes long. It takes 32 minutes to watch every episode of The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican, and that's it. That's nothing. This should be quick and easy. How bad could this show be? Just how bad could it be? Well, you're about to find out. Episode 1. Piggy bank robbery. Okay, only a few seconds into the first episode, and already it becomes extremely f***ing obvious why this is considered the worst cartoon ever made.
Oh, at the rate I'm saving money, I'll soon enough to buy a cornfield, Paddy. Yes, I will.
Holy doodle, Kenny, it isn't safe here. You should take this to the bank.
Oh, don't worry, Paddy. I have a wonderful hiding place for the bank. Nobody would ever find it in this secret sliding panel. See, if I hadn't shown it to you, you'd never know where to find it.
Boy, oh boy, this is my lucky day. I've been wondering where I'd get some money, but I don't have to wither any further. I can play a mean trick on Kenny Crow and put the blame on Paddy Pelican. This is gonna be real great.
Oh my god, there is so much to unpack from these first few seconds alone. Okay, so first things first, it is very obvious that every character on this show is voiced by one person, and that one person is, who else? Sam Singer. The most surprising thing is, though, he's not the only voice actor that's attached to this show. A large majority of the characters on this show are voiced by Sam Singer, and it's very obvious, but there are two characters on this show, two characters that are featured in two of the shorts that have different voice actors, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. Not only is Sam Singer the only voice actor mainly featured on this show, but it seems like he's just improvising every single line of dialogue right from his head. You could clearly see in that clip there are stutters and repeats and whatnot that would never be in a professional cartoon, but it's very obvious that this is not a professional cartoon whatsoever. It's like Sam Singer didn't even bother writing a script for this show. Instead, he just had a vague idea on what the episode was going to be about, and he decided to record all of the dialogue in one take, coming up with these ideas right on the spot while he's recording. And so naturally, as a result of this, the show ends up having this very unorganized, sloppy feel. It's times like this where I have to remind myself that a lot of the cartoons that I cover on this series, they did air on TV, and people did watch them when they came out, and The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican is no exception to this. Someone out there watched this show on TV when it came out all the way back in 1950. I cannot imagine what that would have been like. That must have been a fucking surreal experience to see this on your TV when it was first airing. That is the funniest thing I could imagine for this show. Someone grew up with this. Someone watched this as a kid in 1950. It doesn't feel like it happened because, number one, this show is genuinely that poor quality, and number two, this was a very long time ago. This was all the way back in 1950, but it is very possible that someone out there did grow up and watch this show as a kid. Someone out there had the misfortune to watch this as a kid.
I hope I get a good night's sleep tonight. I'm too worried about all that money in Kenny Crow's house. Oh my God, that brick just missed me. I wonder who threw it. Ah, I did. And I'll make more than that before I'm through with you, Paddy. I thought I could trust you. I'm gonna get the police to put you in jail. Nah, look here, Kenny. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I haven't done anything to you. I swear I haven't done anything.
Do you mean to tell me you have the nerve to stand there and say that you didn't take my piggy bank? I'm telling you that you took my piggy bank.
Bro, this show is like, this is in prehistoric brain rot right here. This is Skibbity Toilet for boomers. My man Sam Singer really did create an AI generated cartoon all the way back in 1950, you know? That's pretty impressive, you gotta admit. Oh yeah, I also want to take the time to acknowledge the amazing, beautiful music that this show has. We've already gone over the theme song, which consists of Sam Singer singing the melody of the theme song, and you thought that was bad? Yeah, well, you listen to the actual music in these shorts, and it'll make you wish that the whole soundtrack for this show. All of the music on this show was like the theme song. Instead, you're left with this like weird like organ in the background that has like no melody, no structure. It's like it's barely music, and it gives this show an unintentionally creepy feel as a result. So the first episode begins with Paddy the Pelican and his friend Kenny Crow, who is showing him where he keeps his piggy bank, which he intends to save money in order to eventually buy a cornfield. And the episode really wants you to know that this character wants to buy a cornfield, as it is brought up quite frequently throughout the episode. You never see this character actually buy the cornfield or anything like that, and this is the only episode that Kenny Crow appears in. This is his only episode. Admittedly, it feels very redundant to go into great detail on why the writing for this show is bad. I mean, you've seen the clips that I've showed you. It's really obvious why the writing is bad. But still, as it turns out, there's this Fox character that's spying on both of them, and he sees the secret compartment that Kenny Crow keeps his piggy bank in. And so when the right time strikes, he not only goes to steal the piggy bank, but he also makes it look like it was Paddy that stole the piggy bank. And throughout this whole scene where this Fox tries to steal this piggy bank, there is no silence at all. There is just constant dialogue thrown at you. It comes across like Sam Singer doesn't want there to be any second of silence in this short, in any of the episodes of this show. And so every single second of the episode needs to have some form of dialogue. Every single second needs to have a character talking. Why? I don't know. Again, I made this clear. The pacing for this show is non-existent. I'm sorry for showing long, lengthy clips from these episodes, but it's like, you need to get a clear idea of how bad this show is. You really do.
Oh, I can hardly wait to get that piggy bank. Kenny Crow's not gonna get his cornfield if I can help it. I can get one of Paddy Pelican's fingerprints, but a footprint will be just as good. I'll send him to jail where he can't bother me anymore. I'm not much of an artist, but this is one art job I can do. It's just a matter of copying. They're perfect. Now with a little mud on it, I can play a good dirty trick on him. Boy, this is gonna be work. Oh! That hurt. That hurt. Wow. I better get that piggy bank and get out of here in a hurry. Say, that's clever. Nobody would ever find this without knowing about it. Boy, this is heavier than I thought. Kenny Crow won't get his cornfield, but I'm gonna live for quite a while real great and put the blame on Paddy Pelican. He'll never be able to squirm out of this one. His own footprints will prove it. Oh boy, this is one of the smartest schemes I ever figured out, and there's no way in the world I can get into trouble. It's perfect.
Later that night, as Paddy prepares to go to sleep, despite the fact that it still looks like it's day, and it continues to look like it's daytime for the rest of the episode. I know that the budget for this show is non-existent, that's very obvious, but still, they couldn't just color the sky black to make it obvious that it's nighttime. I understand this is a nitpick in comparison to the many other problems with the show, but still, I thought it was worth bringing up. Anyways, as Paddy prepares to go to sleep, he gets rudely interrupted by Kenny Crow, who is angry at him, believing that he stole Kenny's piggy bank. And then there's like these weird close-up shots where it's like you see the other character inside of these characters' eyes. Like you see Paddy the Pelican inside Kenny Crow's eyes and vice versa, and I don't know what the hell they were trying to go for with this, but it just looks really weird. And once again, when you combine that with the strange organ music, if you can even call it music, that plays in the background, all that does is just give the show even more of a creepy feel than it already has. Paddy, Kenny, and the Fox all go back. That's a band name right there, Paddy, Kenny, and the Fox. Actually, just Kenny and the Fox, that's a band name right there. Paddy, Kenny, and the Fox all go back to Kenny's house to investigate. And at the crime scene, Paddy notices several inconsistencies that prove that no, he wasn't the one that stole the piggy bank.
There you are. Footprints, Paddy. The secret panel's open, and you're the only person who knew about it. Ah, this is funny. You got an awfully muddy house, and I don't see any mud outside. Those footprints lead away from the secret panel, but there isn't any leading toward it. That just couldn't be. To make those footprints without footprints, there's some dirty work here, I'll tell you that.
I gotta be real with y'all, I would not expect a cartoon of this quality to have something that's like kind of clever. The fact that Paddy notices that there are no footprints leading up to the compartment, but there are footprints leaving the compartment. That's actually a little bit clever, the fact that they acknowledge that. And I would not expect that at all from a cartoon of this quality. So you know what? I gotta give a very tiny bit of credit to this show for that. I gotta give a very tiny bit of credit. It is there where they conclude that it was the Fox that stole the piggy bank. The Fox begs Paddy and Kenny not to call the police, in which Kenny decides to spare the Fox, taking the money out of the piggy bank and giving it to the Fox so that he could save his own money. And then the episode ends just abruptly out of nowhere. Like, this is how it ends. I'm not even joking you.
Come on, your boss ready? Come on out. Come on out, I tell you. Come on out.
Oh, all right. Take your old piggy bank. But don't call the police, please. They said the last time they arrested me that if I got into any more trouble, well, they'd lock me up for good.
I won't call the police, Freddy. And as soon as I've taken all the coins out of it, I'm going to let you have the piggy bank. Now, and then you can save your own money. There it is. Right on your old noggin.
You know what? Given the very bad everything about this show, it's kind of a f***ing miracle that I was able to understand what was going on in this episode. I'm not sure if I'm going to be so lucky for the remaining 5 episodes, but you know what? At least there was one episode of the show that I could understand its plot for, so, you know, that's better than nothing. Anyways, let us move on. Episode 2, 2 Wet Bears. Why do I feel dirty saying the name of this episode? So this episode begins with, of course, 2 wet bears, and I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like these bears might be racist stereotypes just because of the way that they talk. I don't know how to describe it, but like, listen to the way they talk. It feels like racist stereotypes. I don't know. Surely I cannot be the only one that thinks this.
Buster, I don't know whether this is a good idea or not. And let's take a look and see if the motor runs. I can't get the slightest sputter out of it. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing's going to happen, I tell you.
Well, there's a good reason for it, I tell you. Just take a look. There's nothing in the gas tank here. I think we better swim back ashore, we should.
Now, there are obviously a lot of things that are wrong with this show, but one would never expect this show to be potentially racist. However, this becomes less surprising when you remember that, number one, this show came out in 1950 when this sort of thing was unfortunately considered acceptable. And number two, Sam Singer, the creator of this show, also created another show that is explicitly really racist from what I've heard. So when you take both of those things into consideration, it sadly becomes less surprising, the idea of Paddy the Pelican being racist. Anyways, these 2 bears are stranded in the ocean for some reason, and then they find a boat that's just abandoned in the middle of the ocean for some reason. And then they climb onto the boat, and then there's like a storm that comes by, and they end up shipwrecked on land, and then they come across off-brand Popeye over here, and I guess this boat belonged to him. I guess like he got separated from his boat. I don't know why. It's never explained how he lost his boat in the middle of the ocean while stranded, and now he wants to murder the 2 bears for destroying his boat. Everything seems bad for the 2 bears, bears until Paddy the Pelican comes to the rescue. Now, something that I want to bring up is that both Paddy the Pelican and off-brand Popeye over here have the exact same voice. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're voiced by Sam Singer, because that's already been well established. I mean that Sam Singer gives the exact same voice, the exact same tone, whatever, to these two characters. And so as a result of that, it makes it very hard to tell who is who. It makes it very hard to tell who is talking. You have Paddy trying to save the bears, and then you have off-brand Popeye trying to stop Paddy, and it is very hard to tell who is talking in this scene, because these two characters have the exact same sounding voices.
But they didn't take your boat, Beachcomber Bill. You can see right here. The rope's rotten, that's what's happened. You stay out of this. You stay out of this, you little pelican. No matter what happens, I'm gonna eat them, see? Hurry up, fellas. Onto the island. If you climb the trees, you won't be able to get down. Hurry up. Dead Flashy, you come here. You can't get away from me, so you might as well quit crying. I'll throw the squirrel pone at you, I'll tell you.
By the end of the episode, Paddy is able to rescue the two bears. I guess he makes like a makeshift boat for them, I don't know. And then he finds like an actual like cruise ship or whatever far away into the distance, and he tries to get them to stop to get the bears. And then the episode cuts to the bears in a forest away at peace. What happens to off-brand Popeye? The episode never explains it. He's just stranded there. And that's it. That's episode 2 for you. I feel like the funny, bad novelty that this show had for its first episode had worn out almost immediately by the time you get to the second episode. Having this very like poor quality cartoon, it's like it's funny for the first episode, and then you realize the second episode is the exact same thing, and then you realize it's going to be the exact same thing for the remaining 4 episodes. And then very quickly it stops being funny. That's not to say there aren't any like weird funny moments in this episode, because they are there, but overall there's not as many funny moments in this episode when compared to the first episode. By this point, the funny bad novelty had worn off almost immediately after it had started. Unfortunately, that will not be enough to stop me from talking about the remaining 4 episodes of the show. Episode 3, The Land of More. Now, I find it interesting to mention that this is the only one of the 6 episodes that doesn't have Paddy the Pelican appear in it whatsoever. I don't know, I just thought that was worth mentioning. So the episode begins with this boy who has a balloon, and he's disappointed that the balloon is small and he wants the balloon to be bigger. And then there's like this elf creature thing, I don't know, that appears and grants the boy's wish to have the balloon be bigger. And then this happens, and I just need to ask y'all, what does this look like to y'all? What does this look like, honestly? Because I don't know about the rest of y'all, but this looks like something else to me. This looks like something completely different. So then the balloon grows big enough that it destroys the boy's house, and he is sent floating away. And he ends up in the land of more, where everything is more than possible, or some shit like that, I don't know. And it is there where the boy learns that he cannot have too much of something. He wishes for a chocolate soda, whatever that is. The show's words, not mine. I'm guessing they meant root beer float, but I don't know.
Is there more of everything? I should be able to get something to eat then. I'm hungry. How about a chocolate soda?
And it turns out the chocolate soda is too big for the boy to consume. The boy then asks for candy, but again, it's too big for him to eat. He asks for a small piece of candy, and as it turns out, there is nothing small that is allowed in the land of more. The boy then tries to find a way to escape the land of more and return back to his home. And this is where we get the only funny bad moment in the episode.
Then I know what I'll do. I'll wish for a parachute. Oh my, I guess that was a mistake to wish for a parachute, huh? Oh, help get me out of here. It's squashing me. Oh!
After finding out that he cannot directly wish to return back home, he wishes for a parachute, and then when he realizes that won't be enough, he then wishes for a big wind to blow him away. And then using the parachute, he is able to go safely back home, which I guess the Land of More takes place on a separate planet. I don't know. They show this off when the boy leaves the Land of More, but they don't show it when the boy is heading to the Land of More. That, yeah, the Land of More is seemingly in outer space, or it's on another planet or whatever. It's not on Earth. Again, I understand I shouldn't be questioning the logic of this cartoon, but I'm sorry, I can't help it. And so the boy returns back home, and for his final wish, he wishes for his house to be rebuilt exactly the way it was before all of this happened. And the house rebuilding animation is exactly as good as you would expect it to be for a cartoon of this quality.
I never realized how nice it was. Why? My wish has come true.
So it shows the destroyed rubble of the house, and then it briefly shows the house fully repaired, and then it shows it exploding, and then it reverses the explosion. I don't know. Again, it's exactly as good as you would expect it to be for a cartoon of this quality. And it's at this moment where the boy learns a lesson to be grateful for what he has, and that sometimes more is not always better. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this might be the best episode of the show. I mean, it's really hard for me to choose what's the best episode of this show, but if I had to choose what the best episode of this show would be, I feel like it would be this episode. It's like 0.2% more competent in comparison, which isn't saying much because, you know, this is still the adventures of Paddy the Pelican that we're talking about, but I think this might be the least bad episode of the show. The best episode of The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican, and it's also the only episode of the show to not have Paddy the Pelican in it. What does that tell you, honestly? I feel like that should say something, but I'm not sure what it says. Alright, we're officially halfway done. Let's get these remaining 3 episodes out of the way. Episode 4. Pirate Pete. Now, I have a lot to say about this episode when compared to the other episodes of this show. Right off the bat, I'm gonna start off by saying that I think this might be the worst of the 6 episodes, if you can believe it. In the same way the Land of More was somehow 0.2% better than the rest of the show, Pirate Pete over here is somehow 0.2% worse than the rest of the show. I don't know what it is, but I don't like this episode very much when compared to the rest of the show. The bar is practically on the fucking floor, but somehow Pirate Pete is underground. So the episode begins, and you have these 3 characters that are seemingly trapped, kidnapped, I don't know, by the titular Pirate Pete, who is over here stealing gold from Indians. Yes, Indians. Remember, this came out in 1950, and remember, Sam Singer had another cartoon that I believe is about Indians, and it's also really f***ing racist. You can see where this is going.
All right, men, everything that's made of gold, toss it into the ship's hold. No matter how large, no matter how small. If it's made of gold, I want it.
Have mercy. Gold in mine is enough to make you richest man in world. If you take all possessions, our village be ruined.
God, it's like the show wasn't bad enough already. It's like they needed to make the show even worse somehow. It's like, yeah, everything about this show is bad. The animation looks unfinished. Every character is voiced by the same person, which is interesting for me to bring up in this episode, and you're gonna see why. The pacing is non-existent. There is seemingly no script whatsoever that was used for any of these episodes. And the music, if you can even call it that, just consists of an organ being smashed together with no melody or structure of any kind. How could we possibly make this show even worse than it already is? I know. Let's include racism into the mix. Why the not. So then these three characters try and stop Pirate Pete, but they're unable to. Pirate Pete managed to escape from the island with all of the gold, and so the three characters set off to Pirate Pete's ship, in which they notice that it has abruptly stopped. As it turns out, his ship is sinking. The main boy leader, I don't know, of the team concludes that it's the weight of the gold combined with Pirate Pete's crew that's causing the ship to sink. As most of Pirate Pete's crew had jumped off the ship earlier into the episode, that's when they begin to notice that the ship is no longer sinking. They end up sparing Pirate Pete as he learns his lesson and not to be greedy, and all of the gold is subsequently returned to the Indians. And so at the end of the episode, as the three main characters are sailing away, they notice a familiar looking bird in the sky.
Hey, there's the Pelican, back with us again. Hey, that's the fella that brought me nothing but luck. And our troubles are over from now on.
It's Paddy the Pelican making a cameo in The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican. Wow. It's like they tried making this a fucking MCU fan service cameo or whatever. Like, you know how like when people were cheering and screaming when they saw like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man or Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man in No Way Home, or like any of the cameos that are in Deadpool and Wolverine. It feels like this is like the prototype of that happening. Like Sam Singer just put in a cameo of the main character of this show near the end of one of his episodes, and he just expected people to be like, bro, no way, look, it's Paddy the Pelican, I can't believe he's making a cameo in this show, that's so insane. It's just so fucking stupid, seriously. By this point, the funny bad nature of the show had just completely disappeared. Episodes 2 and 3 had a few funny bad moments in them. Episode 4 has absolutely no funny bad moments in it. This is the moment where all of the funny bad stuff just dries up. By this point, you're just completely used to the awful nature of this show, and as a result of that, you cannot find it to be all that funny. The thing that gets to me is that this episode has three main characters, but then it's like only the boy leader, this character, is really important to the plot. The other two characters, as far as I'm concerned, could be easily removed from the episode, and it would have little to no effect whatsoever on the episode's plot. And so it makes you question, why the hell are they even in this episode in the first place? What purpose do they serve? They don't contribute anything to the episode's plot. As a matter of fact, one of these three characters has so little purpose in this episode and its storyline that he's not even mentioned in the opening credits for the episode. Every episode of the show, in addition to starting off with that glorious theme song, also begins with Sam Singer briefly explaining what the episode is going to be about, and this episode is no exception. In this introduction, I decided to check, and he only names it two of the characters. He doesn't name the third character.
Hi there, boys and girls. Paddy's friends, Jocko and Mary, have been thrown into a deep underground dungeon by Pirate Pete. Will Paddy be able to save them? Well, let's find out.
I swear to God, this show is the fucking gift that keeps on giving. Will Paddy the Pelican be able to save them? It's like enticing you to watch the episode, to see Paddy the Pelican in it. And then you watch the episode, he only appears at the very end as a 2-second non-speaking cameo, and that's it. Sam Singer, the original clickbaiter, everyone. What is easily the most interesting thing about this episode, though, is the girl. Now, we've already established numerous times before, every character on this show is voiced by Sam Singer himself. This character is one of only 2 characters to my knowledge that are not voiced by Sam Singer.
Oh, this must be the old medicine man's teepee. Oh, we must take Pirate Pete by surprise. Oh, I hope we're not too late to save the Solar Indian chief. Look, Pirate Pete's ruffians are looting the village. They're taking everything that's made of gold.
Now here's the thing that really interests me. The identity of this woman, the identity of the voice actress that voices this girl is unknown. We have no idea who this woman is that voices this character. Her identity is a complete fucking mystery. The theme song only says The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican, and then it shows the name of the episode, and that's it. This isn't like a Looney Tunes cartoon or a Tom and Jerry cartoon where it's like, it shows the name of the show, and then it shows the name of the short, and then it shows the people that worked on the short. No, there's nothing like that at all. And then every episode ends with an extremely brief "the end" screen, and that's it. At no point is this woman ever credited. We have no idea who this woman is. We have no idea who voices this character. We know a little bit about Sam Singer. We know nothing about this woman. And then it becomes even more interesting when you remember that this came out all the way back in 1950. This show is almost 75 years old, and because of that, whoever voices this character is either very old or she's dead. Sam Singer himself would pass away in 2001 at the age of 88, and so as a result of that, more likely than not, this woman, whoever voiced this character, had the same thing happen. She is no longer with us, unfortunately. This woman had a life. This woman had friends and family. Maybe she was married. Maybe she had a husband. Maybe she had kids. Who knows? She had an entire life, and we don't know anything about that life. We don't know anything about this woman. We don't know her name. We know nothing about it whatsoever. This episode is seemingly the only thing that remains of this woman to this very day. Her voice is forever immortalized in this episode. Besides her voice work in this short, her identity remains a complete mystery. Every time you rewatch this episode and you hear this character talk, just know whoever voiced this character is unknown. The identity of the woman that provided the voice for this character is a complete mystery.
Well, we are gaining on Pirate Pete, Captain Shafto. I can see the ship without looking through the glasses. Why, he must be taking his time.
Bro, this show is f***ing scary, seriously. When I was a kid, I thought Sonic with red and black eyes and Mickey Mouse walking down a street were the scariest things in the world. If I had known about this show's existence as a kid, I would never be able to sleep again, because Jesus Christ, this is perfect nightmare fuel right here. This is scarier than any Lost episode creepypasta. I don't care. Y'all make a big deal about analog horror, bro. That shit is Barney compared to this, easily. Alright, so in order to make things less scary, I'm just gonna remind y'all that there are only 2 episodes left to talk about, and we're gonna move on to them right this moment. Episode 5, Swania Foiled Again. I don't know if this is a pun, I don't know if this is a reference to something, I don't know, that's just the name of the episode, okay? So the episode begins with Paddy and his grandpa, who I'm just gonna say has a very unfitting voice. Like, I'm sorry, but this voice does not fit this character design.
Oh, our newest shipment of corn has disappeared. It was put in the vault this morning. Oh, why, this could ruin Pelican Land if we don't find it. Oh, we owe 50 bushels of corn to the neighboring state of Swania. And if we don't pay that debt by midnight tonight, the Swans will take over our country. Oh, I'd better summon the Lord High Chancellor at once. Oh, if we don't find that corn, Pelican Land is ruined.
But anyways, this third character appears, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, but he seems very trustworthy. So he and Paddy both head down to the dungeon for some reason. Paddy looks inside the dungeon, and it's completely empty. And then the villain, yeah, this is the villain. It's so obvious that this is the villain. The villain Swan throws Paddy into the dungeon and locks him into it, and he makes it look like he accidentally slipped Paddy into the dungeon and locked him in. And so he claims that he's gonna try and find someone that has the key that'll allow him to free him from the dungeon, which that obviously never happens. This character instead goes and steals Pelican Land's corn supply. Paddy's grandpa finds him inside the dungeon, and now he has a completely different and more fitting voice when compared to when we first saw him.
Oh, why, this could ruin Pelican Land if we don't find it. Oh, we owe 50 bushels of corn to the neighboring state of Swania.
Why, there is no keeper of the dungeon, Paddy. Well, we haven't kept anybody down here for years. But the Lord Chancellor has a key.
The show can't even keep the voice for a character consistent within the same episode. That right there is a new fucking low. Jesus Christ. So as it turns out, the Swan lied about getting the key. The grandpa has a spare key which he uses to open the dungeon door. And so Paddy comes up with an idea, and we get a return of that weird eye close-up shot from Piggy Bank Robbery. Seriously, I don't know why the hell Sam Singer included this into his show, and he doesn't realize this looks terrifying. Somehow he created this and he didn't think this looked like nightmare fuel. Okay, sure. But anyways, Paddy keeps the key to himself and pretends that he's still trapped and locked inside of the dungeon. And then the Swan returns, letting Paddy know that he has yet to find the key or whatever to free him out of the dungeon. As soon as the Swan leaves, Paddy leaves outside as well, following him without the Swan knowing. I love how Paddy just casually assumes that the Swan will come back and provide Paddy with an update. Given the fact that this character is supposed to be the villain of the episode, I feel like it would have made more sense for him to just leave Paddy inside of the dungeon, lock him into the dungeon, pretend that it was an accident, claim that you're gonna find a key to help free Paddy, and then never come back ever. And then eventually, after a very, very, very long time, Paddy realizes, yeah, he lied. He's not coming back to free him. I don't know, I just find it weird, the idea of this character coming back to the dungeon and updating Paddy. Doesn't feel like a very villainous thing to do, you know? Anyways, as Paddy sneaks out of the dungeon and into the forest, he sees the Swan stealing Pelican Land's corn supply. He catches up to the Swan, who escapes in a paddle boat. And so Paddy comes up with a genius plan to get to the paddle boat without getting caught. He pulls out a piece of cloth and uses it to camouflage himself into the sky, which would be a great idea if, you know, the show wasn't in black and white. Somehow it ends up working and Paddy catches up to the Swan, and that's where he realizes that the Swan is actually a swan. Wow. Yeah, throughout the whole episode, the Swan acts as like a spy, I guess. He pretends to be a pelican. He has this like thing under his beak that makes him look like a pelican, and it turns out it's fake and he's actually a swan. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the idea of there being like a rivalry war, I don't know, between two different kinds of birds, pelicans versus swans, I feel like that's kind of an interesting idea. Unfortunately, it's only ever explored in this episode. Paddy forces the Swan to carry all of the corn back to Pelican Land, and the episode ends with the grandpa congratulating Paddy, once again with a different voice from what he had in the beginning of the episode.
Paddy, I'm mighty proud of you, son. If it hadn't been for your quick thinking, why, there's no telling what might have happened to us.
Of course, this is the face that he has to make at the very end of the episode. This is completely off topic and it has nothing to do with the episode itself, it's more about the show in general, but I love how extremely short the end cards are. It's like the show is just rushing to end the episode and that's it. Like, yep, that's it, that's the end of the episode, go home now. Giving you no time to breathe or comprehend that, yeah, that's the end of the episode. Not even bothering to credit any of the people that worked on this show. I mean, yeah, I understand like 99% of the show was made by Sam Singer and that's it. 99% of the characters on this show are voiced by Sam Singer. But again, as I mentioned before, you have the girl with the mysterious voice actress from Pirate Pete. So, you know, it wouldn't hurt to put credits at the end telling you who made the short that you had just watched, even if there's only one mayor person that worked on the whole short. But I'm getting off topic. You're probably wondering what happened to the swan after Paddy forcefully made him return all of the corn. Well, this might come as a surprise, but they don't explore what happened to the swan. What a shocker, I know. They show him being punished by returning the corn, and then that's it. You get a brief scene of the grandpa congratulating Paddy, and then Paddy makes this really freaky looking smile, and then the episode ends, and that's it. Alright, we only got one episode left. Let's make this as quick as possible. Again, I must remind y'all, this show is only 32 minutes long. It takes only 32 minutes to binge watch every episode of the show. More likely than not, this video will have a longer runtime than all 6 episodes of this show put together. I would have thought that this show would have been like a very self-explanatory cartoon. You look at it and you think, yeah, it's obvious why this show is bad. But somehow this show manages to be self-explanatory, and then it also feels like a cartoon where I'm required to go into excessive detail on why it's bad at the same time. If that makes sense, which I don't know if it does, to be honest. But I am delaying the inevitable. Let us proceed forward with the 6th and thankfully final episode of The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican. Episode 6. Plum Valley. The episode begins with Big Jack Horner. Yes, Jack Horner. It's times like this where I have to remind myself that Jack Horner is a legitimate fairy tale character and not just an original character they made exclusively for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I just know for a fact that there is someone out there that will get mad at me for saying that for some reason. I have a feeling what I just said would be considered blasphemy by the fairy tale fandom, assuming such a thing exists, but I'm sorry, I can't help it. When I hear the name Jack Horner, my mind immediately goes to this big guy. I can't help it, I'm sorry. I regret to inform you all that there are 0 realistic depictions of a panic attack to be found anywhere in this episode, or in any of the 6 episodes of this show. Therefore, The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican is not cinema. Anyways, the episode begins with Jack Horner, who desperately needs plums for his plum pie business. Unfortunately for him, he cannot find plums anywhere nearby, and so he becomes worried that he will go out of business. That all changes the moment he learns about Plum Valley, which is, well, a valley full of plums, obviously. What else could it be? By driving up a steep, oil-covered mountain, he is able to get to Plum Valley. However, he is warned that once he enters Plum Valley, he can never come back. Ignoring this warning, Jack Horner decides to head to Plum Valley, with Paddy the Pelican following behind. As the two of them finally get past the oil mountain, Paddy leaves Jack behind in order to get help for when Jack inevitably gets in trouble. It is down in Plum Valley where Jack Horner meets this witch princess character, I don't know, and she is the only other character in the entire show to not be voiced by Sam Singer. And much like the girl from Pirate Pete, the identity of the voice actress for this character is just unknown. Nobody knows who voiced this character, because clearly this show wasn't scary enough already.
Don't have many visitors, but most people stay away from my valley. The people who do come, they like it here. At least they never leave. Now, why did you come here?
Jack manages to obtain as many plums as he could possibly hold, but he is unable to head back home due to the oil mountain. And then we cut to Paddy the Pelican, who's at this workshop place, I think, before heading back to Plum Valley. It is here where he finds out that this witch character, I don't know, I keep calling her a witch. She looks like a princess, but she has the voice of a witch. Like, she has that stereotypical witch voice. So really, I have no clue what she's supposed to be, okay? The villain of the episode there. Let's simplify it. That's technically correct. Paddy finds out that the villain of the episode is the one that deliberately oils the mountains. That is something that I just said. And so Paddy tries to put a stop to it, believing that it is a waste of precious, valuable oil. A truck full of gravel appears uphill, and the gravel gets dumped, allowing for Jack Horner to drive back home safely. Because the mountain is covered in oil, I have no idea why the dump truck doesn't slip down on either side of the mountain, but whatever. The episode, much like every other episode of the show, just ends abruptly out of nowhere. Obviously, yeah, the conflict is resolved, but it just feels so abrupt and out of nowhere. It's like the millisecond the conflict gets resolved, the episode ends. And in all 6 episodes, it feels like there should be like an extra minute or two showing the aftermath of the resolution. But alas, here is how the episode ends, and by extension, here is how the adventures of Paddy the Pelican ends.
When I get through with you, you'll wish you had minded your own business. Woo! Woo! Save me! Oh, I'll drown in oil. Turn it off! Oh, you win, I give up! Oh, you've ruined everything. All my subjects will follow Jack Horner.
But you won't need to force people to stay here anymore. It's worth millions, all that oil. But I'm gonna leave now. I want to go home and get cleaned up, you see? I don't like being this kind of an oily bird.
Finally, we are done with this god-forsaken cartoon. Finally. The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican is unlike any other cartoon that I have ever seen before, and I obviously do not mean that in a good way. Yes, we have looked at poorly made cartoons before in the past, but Jesus Christ, this right here, this is a whole new low right here. This is a new level of garbage that I've never seen before. Everything about this show doesn't work. Every character, with the exception of only 2 characters, is voiced by just one person, and that's it. And a lot of times it's very obvious that they're all voiced by the same person. The music in the background is barely even music. It's just organ keys being played randomly with no structure or melody of any kind. The animation is very poor quality. Very rarely are there ever backgrounds. Most of the characters just stand behind a white void, and that's it. There's also a lot of looping artwork as well. A lot of animation is just repeated, and it adds to the very sloppy feel of the show. I suppose the art itself is okay. It's not terrible. It may very well be the only unironically not awful thing about the show, but again, it looks like an unfinished storyboard. I feel like I'm watching like an early draft of a cartoon. I don't feel like I'm watching the final version of a cartoon. There is no pacing whatsoever. There's a lot of stuttering and repeats within the dialogue. Everything is said so awkwardly. It's like there is no script that was used at all, which that could very well be the case. No script was used at all. Every line of dialogue in this show is just seemingly improvised off the top of Sam Singer's head. It's just an absolute fucking mess of a show, and I can very easily understand why this is considered the worst cartoon ever made. You know what this show reminds me of? I hope y'all are ready for a music lesson, folks. In the late 60s, there was a short-lived all-female rock band called The Shags that only put out one album, Philosophy of the World, in 1969. An album that quickly garnered a reputation for being one of the worst albums ever made made. You listen to the first few seconds of any song on this album, and it becomes very obvious why this is considered one of the worst albums ever made. I could play an audio snippet from one of the songs in this video, but I don't want to risk getting demonetized or a copyright claim, strike, anything like that. I don't want to deal with that. But to give you an idea, Philosophy of the World has the same sloppy, disorganized nature that Paddy the Pelican has. If Philosophy of the World was a cartoon, it would be The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican. You know that whole urban legend where if you listen to The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd while watching The Wizard of Oz, it syncs up perfectly? Yeah. I wonder what would happen if you decide to listen to Philosophy of the World while watching all 6 episodes of The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican. After all, Philosophy of the World's runtime is only 1 minute shorter than Paddy the Pelican's runtime. Combine that with the sloppy, disorganized, unintentionally avant-garde nature of both projects, and you got yourself a match made in heaven, or hell, I don't know. And while we're on the topic of unintentionally avant-garde, even though Philosophy of the World is widely considered one of the worst albums ever made, it's also been considered a work of unintentional genius, with several high-profile musicians naming the album as an influence. Kurt Cobain listed the album as one of his favorite albums of all time, and I believe Frank Zappa also named the album as an influence on his work. Which, I mean, that's not as surprising for Frank Zappa as it is for Kurt Cobain, because Frank Zappa was a much more experimental musician compared to Kurt Cobain, but he is still a high-profile musician nonetheless. I'm honestly kind of interested in seeing why that hasn't happened with Paddy the Pelican. I personally don't find the show to be funny bad, not as funny bad as it should be, but I would be lying if I said there wasn't a little bit of that unintentionally avant-garde feel to this show. In the same way Philosophy of the World influenced the likes of Kurt Cobain and Frank Zappa, maybe this show has influenced some famous animator out there, or maybe it's influencing a soon-to-be famous animator for all we know. Someone out there picked up a pencil because of Paddy the Pelican. The next Walt Disney, the next Hayao Miyazaki could be out there in the world, and there's a non-zero chance that they've gotten some form of inspiration from Paddy the Pelican. And then it makes you question, maybe Paddy the Pelican is actually kind of ingenious, you know? Maybe this obscure, poorly made piece of crap cartoon from the early 50s is actually an avant-garde, ahead of its time work of art. So ahead of its time, in fact, that 75 years later, audiences still cannot comprehend its meaning. The human mind is still not strong enough to comprehend what this show means, and I don't think it ever will know what it means. Or, more likely than not, the show is just complete f***ing garbage. As I've mentioned before, The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican is easily the worst cartoon covered on this series in terms of quality, but in terms of tolerability, I don't know, it's not the worst cartoon. It is very low on the list, but it's not the worst cartoon I've ever seen. Maybe I shouldn't hate on this show all that much, considering the fact that its entire runtime consists of only 32 minutes. Granted, these are the longest 32 minutes that you will ever have to endure in your life, but it's still 32 minutes nonetheless. I want to apologize for the lack of Search for the Worst Cartoon videos in the last few months. I promise y'all there will be more episodes coming out this year to make up for the hiatus that lasted from November to May, but you gotta admit, this was one hell of a way to bring back the Search for the Worst Cartoon after a lengthy hiatus. You cannot deny that at all. Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see y'all next time. Adios.